Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Thank you for joining me for the last in the APPify the Processes webinar series. Today we're talking with Avalara. If you missed some of those other webinars, you can watch them on my YouTube channel. There's a link here, and I'll share that with you a little bit later as well. My name is Michelle Wong. I am the owner of Wong for Success and the author of several different books. You can check those out on Amazon if you're interested. I'm co-host of the award-winning Ultimate Accounting VCon, a virtual conference for accountants and bookkeepers. Love to have you join us for that. Our next one is coming up in July. The LinkedIn group is a great resource when you have questions. If you want to join that, we now have over 70,000 members. And I'm also thrilled to say that, I've been teaching QuickBooks since 1999 and for Intuit since 2007, and I'm thrilled to say that over the past year I've now become an international speaker. I've been going all across Canada, and I've enjoyed that a lot, and I've also had the privilege to go down to Australia and over to London as well. So I really enjoyed this, and I'm glad to have you guys joining me today. We also have Ray and Jordan from Avalara. You guys want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Jordan Lang. I'm with Avalara. We have Ray here. Ray, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I work in business development, supporting the accounting and bookkeeping community around the world. And Jordan's the sales manager for QuickBooks.
Yep.
And so you'll get a sense of how we look at the market and what we do.
Very good. And I can tell you, I've met both of you guys several times, and you guys are fun. And you guys are fun to work with, and you also have a lot of great information and everything. So thank you for joining me, and we'll turn it over to you guys in just a little bit. I want to remind everybody that we have some prizes today. For those who are attending live, we will randomly select, and somebody's going to get either QuickBooks Accountant or QuickBooks Premier 2013. They can choose an autographed practice set, either for the desktop or QuickBooks Online. And because this is our last in the APPify series, somebody is going to be able to win QuickBooks Enterprise 13. You have to have attended all 6 of these webinars to be eligible. And then when you go to SurveyMonkey, and I will copy and paste that and put it in the chat room here in a little bit, there's just 2 questions. Did you attend all 6? And if so, what's your name and email address so we can contact you, and you might be our lucky winner today. So with that said, what we're going to be talking about today is first I'm going to give you again the overview of the APPify, kind of review what we've been covering so far, and then we're going to talk about the key benefits of Avalara and AvaTax and the problems that it solves, who it's right for. They're going to give you a quick demo of how it works with the key features and integrations. They're going to talk about their advisor program or their partner program they have for accountants, and then we'll have the information if you have some more questions with contact information at the end. So just as a reminder, we've been talking about APPify the Processes for the past month. And what we're talking about is in the middle there, you've got your core accounting system. And maybe it is QuickBooks or QuickBooks Online, or maybe you're using another accounting system, but you've got that as your core. Then you have all these different functions of the business where your clients or these small businesses might be having some pain points, where they have inefficiencies, they're doing double entry, and things just aren't working very smoothly. And that's where we can use an app to help streamline that process, reduce double entry and things like that. So we had a webinar with ScanWriter where we talked about how we can scan in invoices or bills. We could scan in PDF of bank statements and get hundreds of transactions entered in just a few minutes. So we had that webinar. We talked about T-Sheets for time tracking and how you can integrate that to make payroll really seamless and a whole lot easier. Today we're talking about Avalara and how that can help us to streamline our taxes and make sure we're in compliance, because those tax codes and the sales taxes are a lot more complex than a lot of people realize. We also talked with Bill.com, and they helped us to see how we could streamline the accounts payable and even accounts receivable, and how using Bill.com can really help us to streamline that process and get approvals for things and everything. Perhaps you have clients that are using operational issues like with inventory or job costing and stuff. When we did the Intuit App Center one, if you go to apps.com, you can find other apps for some of those things as well. We had a webinar with Concur where we talked about how that can help you to streamline your expenses and get that stuff into QuickBooks more efficiently and effectively. So if you missed any of these webinars, if you go to my YouTube channel, the recording is out there so that you can go listen to that. And some of them have some special offers. T-Sheets is having a contest where they're giving away cold hard cash. ScanWriter had a great offer. So you go out there and listen to the webinars at my YouTube channel. They should all be out there, actually with the exception of T-Sheets. and we're having a problem with the recording. We're trying to get that out there as soon as possible. But check all those out because it's all got great information for you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and have a quick poll question for you while we change the presenters here. So let me push this poll question out. We want to know if you're being asked about sales taxes from your client. Are you getting questions from your clients about sales taxes? And let me go ahead and pass you this, Ray, while they're answering that. There you go. So Ray, you should be getting the ball to be the presenter now. Okay, so let's see. You guys are voting on this poll. Are clients asking you about sales taxes?
Yeah, we're using,
we're
using Jordan's computer.
Oh, okay. So is he able to share his screen?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I haven't gotten the request, though.
Oh, okay. I just sent that to you. Let's see. Let me try that again. While they're answering that poll question, let me check on that again. Okay, there should be something where you have to click to accept it. Look at if it may be under another window. Here, let me change it back to myself as presenter. Okay, I am the presenter, and now
there we go.
There we go.
Do you have it now?
We do.
Okay. All right, let me go ahead and close that poll question then. And we can see that we had 72% of the people who are being asked about sales tax questions, 28% said no. That's interesting. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hide that question and make sure we can see your screen. And then Jordan and Ray, people are not seeing your screen. Let me do this again. Click. Here, let's try it one more time. Click.
Yeah, so
There we go.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Now we can see your screen. There you go.
Yeah. You know, we are a technology company, and it's challenging.
Hey, I know how that goes.
So welcome, everybody. And we look forward to telling you why sales tax is exciting. And to the point on if you're getting asked questions on sales tax, it's not unusual that people say no to that. We did a survey last year, and 52% of accounting professionals agreed that running a marathon or going through a divorce is easier than sales tax. So we're here to help in those circumstances and talk about it and give you an update on what's going on in the market in terms of sales tax and why your clients may ask you some more questions over the next several months, and give you an idea of how our software works with QuickBooks. Jordan will go through and do a walkthrough, and you'll get a high-level sense of why it's important for those clients that have a situation where they could be collecting sales tax in multiple states, something like that, or even the smaller client where it makes sense for them as well. When we look at the state of the state, so to speak, we all know what's happened over the last several years. State revenues have been in decline, and states have been looking at ways to shore up their budgets and increase and close the gap on their state budgets. With that said, if you looked at an overview of the states themselves, you would see that sales tax, really across the United States is around 16 or 17%, and here in the state of Washington, somebody mentioned they're from Seattle, it varies between 47 to 51% of the state budget comes from sales tax and B&O tax. And you go, well, how can that happen? Well, the state of Washington doesn't have a state income tax. So I think if you start putting your head around it, you get a sense that state sales tax is really important in Washington, and they have a whole cadre of auditors out trying to collect this money. I'm going to let Jordan talk.
Okay, everybody. Like Ray just mentioned, the states have their auditors out looking for extra money for the states, and here in Washington in particular, like Ray mentioned, it's very important. But what else are the states doing to try to make up for these budget shortfalls? Well, they're really redefining their definitions of nexus, and that's just the requirement to have to collect and remit tax in a state. Remote sellers really can't assume anymore that Quill versus North Dakota, which was the famous U.S. Supreme Court case, which gave us the current definition of nexus here in the country, is really applicable anymore, especially to their scenario. Why is this? Well, there's plenty of different activities that companies take part in just a day-to-day basis conducting business that can create nexus for them, and they might not be aware of it. Well, what are some examples of that? Well, having an independent agent for your organization that might represent a company in another state, or maybe even in another county in certain states here in the country, and that can create nexus for an organization. Having a remote sales force. If you're a company based in Washington and you have employees in 10 other states that travel around their region, or maybe even within their state, they can establish nexus for your organization anywhere they go to solicit business. Then there's affiliate nexus. And affiliates can be anybody that refers organizations to your company to make purchases, or individuals to make purchases. And then another one, which is a very fun subject, is trade show participation. If you're an organization that travels to trade shows around the country and you solicit your business and meet with other industry professionals and move your business forward, you're probably establishing nexus in a lot of the states. Now, some of the states are more lax with that than others, but any way you look at it, the states are redefining what actually establishes nexus for an organization, and they have the right to do so. Something else that's come up, and I do like to touch on, you see here at the bottom of my slide, the Amazon laws. Well, the Amazon laws are basically a click-through law that if you're an individual on a website and you click a purchase agreement, or you click to purchase an item, and you're transferred to another website or to a retailer to buy that product, and you purchase it, that can establish an nexus for your organization. It's a very interesting subject. The state of New York actually was the first to put one of these in place, and now 11 states here in the country have actually put in these click-through nexus laws that organizations can be liable for nexus in a state because someone clicked through on a web page to purchase a product from their company. So, very interesting item, and we could really spend a whole hour here talking just about nexus. What else are they doing? Ray mentioned it. They're hiring auditors. California hired 100 auditors, or they've announced that they're hiring 100 auditors over the next 3 years. And Idaho hired 48 auditors within the last year. We have a second poll question we want to throw up. Michelle, do you mind throwing that up?
Oops. Yes, there it is. Sorry about that. I forgot I was muted. You know, and you're so right, Jordan, about that whole nexus thing and stuff. And that's something that really gets a lot of small businesses because they're not aware of it, and they're not aware that something they've done now has triggered nexus for them.
I talk to organizations every day, Michelle, and that is always the biggest topic of conversation, is organizations having to understand that they've established nexus just by their business process. And maybe even, like I mentioned, through affiliates or through agents of the organization. And it's something that comes up every day.
Yeah, and that's something, too, that we as accounting professionals need to be aware of, so that if they do start selling, like, say, on Amazon, that we're knowledgeable so that we can help them to avoid getting into trouble.
Now, Amazon's a topic in and of itself for organizations, especially companies that have their product fulfilled by Amazon. And we could go on and on about that.
Yeah. So, you know, today Amazon has warehouses in 14 states, and so if you have your products fulfilled by Amazon, shipped out by Amazon, you have de facto nexus in those 14 states. So if you sell into those, in theory, you would owe sales tax or have to remit sales tax. It would be, you know, the rule of thumb that we use is $250 a month, or close to $3,000 a year. If you sell that much, then you should be looking at filing and getting registered in those states.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this polling question. Do you guys have clients who are selling online? And let's go ahead and share those results. It looks like 57% yes and 43% no, so that's very helpful.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and that's probably average for what we see, unless we're at the Internet Retailers Conference where everybody sells online, huh?
Yeah, that's about what I expected.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, so our next slide here, guys. Besides redefining Nexus, what else are they doing? Well, they're focusing on product taxability and making items taxable that may not have been taxable in previous years in their state. And they've been doing this for 30 years, but it's become even more of a hot button issue because the companies or the states are basically broke. Got an example here, if I can get my mouse. There we go. So the yellow states on this map are the states that tax downloadable software. And in the last 4 years, that went from 22 states to now 33 here in the U.S. This is just one example of many when you look at it in terms of the states that are making products taxable that previously were not. And I'm actually going to show you guys a high-tech example here in a minute when I show how our AvaTax solution works with QuickBooks. Now, I'm going to have Ray really quickly talk about our partnership programs that we offer for accountants that like to have customers use our AvaTax solution to solve their sales tax challenges. So Ray, go ahead and talk about our partnership programs.
Yeah, so as you guys know, accountants themselves typically don't charge sales tax. Services, there's not sales tax on them. So you're typically, if you're going to use Avalara, you're going to use Avalara on behalf of your clients. So we really have two programs. One is a referral program where if you have a client that needs sales tax calculation to be done, after Jordan shows you, I think you'll likely have a few out of the number of people on the call. It's a typical referral program. We would pay a fee for you referring your client. The second program we have is a compliance program where if you have a larger set of clients and those clients are using QuickBooks, we would integrate with all of your clients. We would bill your accounting firm, and then you could process returns for your clients. That's for larger firms, fall into that compliance section that want to do sales tax returns for their clients. If anybody's interested, there's contact information, and we can talk about that further at a later time.
Perfect. Thanks, Ray. So now let's go ahead and jump into a demonstration of our AvaTax solution. But before I jump into it, everybody, I want to give you a brief, shall we say, visual of how our AvaTax solution works. So on the screen here, you're going to see a pretty simple diagram. And here we go. So what you're going to notice here is our AvaTax solution is a cloud-based sales tax engine that takes into account all the rates, rules, and boundaries associated with any destination address here in the United States. Also takes into account product and service taxability, and will file your returns back to the state. It's a pretty simple diagram here, and just in terms of just having a nice linear look at how our solution works. Now let's go ahead and jump out of this, and let's jump right into a demonstration. Now I'm going to do a demonstration in QuickBooks Enterprise 2013, and you should be able to see my screen here in just a moment. I paused it. Michelle, everybody see QuickBooks?
Yeah, we do now.
Okay, perfect. So we are a gold level certified developer with Intuit. We actually are the only one that is a sales tax service provider, everybody. So when I go into QuickBooks and I drop my file menu, you're actually going to see AvaTax listed as an item. You can directly configure our AvaTax solution right here inside of QuickBooks. Let's go ahead and create an invoice, and I'll show you guys how this works. We're going to sell to my AvaTax demo customer. One second here. We are going to, I need to fix this, change today's date to the 29th. We're going to ship into Half Moon Bay, California. And like I mentioned, we're going to use a high-tech example. Now, as everybody I'm sure is aware of on the webinar, there are numerous industries that have taxability challenges in terms of determining if their product is taxable or not in a state. But high-tech's easy for everybody to understand, and that's what I'm going to use here today. So we're going to sell a big computer. With that big computer, I'm going to sell some downloadable software. I'm also going to sell a software maintenance contract to maintain that software. And then last but not least, I'm going to sell some freight to actually ship that computer to its destination. So that's pretty standard invoicing process inside of QuickBooks. And if you look here, the tax item is set to AvaTax. That's what tells QuickBooks to call out to our tax engine in the cloud and do the calculation. So I'm going to go ahead and save this invoice like you always would. And what you're going to see is you're going to see a dialog box pop up. What that dialog box is telling you is that QuickBooks is calling out to our AvaTax engine, doing a calculation of tax, and returning the amount. So there we go. $1,007 in tax due on the invoice. It's populated back into the total. You've got $12,507 invoice here. Now let's say that you email this out to the customer gives you a call and says, hey, I think you got our tax wrong, or I think you think you might have charged a little bit too much. Well, that's when your clients would log in to our AvaTax Dashboard. Now, our AvaTax Dashboard is actually how you interact with our AvaTax solution outside of QuickBooks. So when you log in, you hit a home screen, or what we like to call a landing page. Gives you access to service notices and account alerts. Gives your customers a small summary of their sales tax liability, and access to our training guides and training videos and support. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over our home screen here. We're going to jump right into our Transactions tab. Now, our Transactions tab is actually a reporting engine that will allow your clients to see any transaction they've ran through our system going back over 7 years. It defaults to the current day, though. So I just pulled up my Jordan Lang QuickBooks company here, and as you can see, I've got one invoice in here today. I do want to point out that at the end of this hyperlink, 12834, is the corresponding invoice number to the invoice in QuickBooks. So it's very easy to find an invoice if you've ran multiple in a day. I clicked into it. Okay, so clicked into it. We've got our 4 dialog boxes here at the top. What you're going to see is you're going to see your bill to ship to information, and below you're going to see some other information we need for the calculation. Down here, these are our line items. Let's go over these line items. That first line item is a big computer. Now, a big computer is tied to something we call a tax code. A tax code here is P with 7 zeros, and it's tangible personal property. Well, what happened here is this item, this computer, came through our AvaTax engine and was not recognized as any item. When an item comes through our tax engine and is not identified, we default to tangible property and tax an item. It's a best practice when in doubt, tax it. It's also nice if your customer or if your client has hundreds of products maybe in inventory and they're all considered a tangible item, a widget, whatever it might be called, whatever it might be. At this address, 501 Main Street in Half Moon Bay, California, there are 5 different taxing jurisdictions that apply to that particular address. There's your California state tax of 6.5%. There's a San Mateo County tax of another percent. There's a Half Moon Bay city tax of 0.5%, a transportation San Mateo County tax of 1%, and then last but not least, a San Mateo County retail transactions tax that is another 0.5%. As you can see here, we flagged this item as fully taxable, and we've even returned the tax due per jurisdiction over here on the right. Pretty straightforward how our solution works. Let's go on to that next item, though, that downloadable software. So the downloadable software, like I mentioned earlier, isn't taxable in every state. It's only taxable in 33 of the 45 tax-collecting states here in the country. And how we identify that downloadable software with AvaTax is through a tax code. These tax codes are 50 state or 45 state plus DC compliant and are kept up to date in real time with our AvaTax, inside of our AvaTax engine. So this tax code DC010500 is for computer software that is pre-written or canned and electronically downloaded. So, as you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and expand this down. Same tax and jurisdictions apply, but we've flagged this as non-taxable and returns $0 tax due. And the reason why is because in the state of California, digital downloadable software is non-taxable. If we change that invoice and change it to a state that had downloadable software as taxable, we tax that inside of our system. The next line item, a software maintenance contract. It's tied to a different tax code. It's for computer software maintenance agreements with pre-written software and physical media sent to the customer for whatever reason. Well, I'm going to go ahead and show you here. As you can see here, it's a $1,200 line item, but we actually have $600 non-taxable and $600 taxable. And you might ask yourself, why is that? Well, in the state of California, with a software maintenance contract of that definition, they consider it half a service, which is non-taxable in the state of California, so this $600, and then half tangible property because the software was sent in a physical format to the customer, so $600 taxable. We go ahead and automatically break that out, and we tax half of it, and we put it back into QuickBooks. QuickBooks actually cannot do that automatically, so if you have a client that has to do that, they have to do that manually and put it back in themselves. As you can see, it happens automatically here with AvaTax. Next item is freight. I'm not going to really go into it, but we manage freight taxability as well. And this example, freight was not marked up. So in the state of California, when freight's not marked up, you consider it $100. That $100 item is considered non-taxable. We return $0 tax due. So you can print out this transaction level detail, and your clients can send it to their customers, and chances are they're never going to hear back about how we came up with a calculation of tax. I jumped over the organization tab earlier, guys. I'm going to jump back to that. This is where your customers set up their sales tax profile. It's where they map their products and services to our tax codes, and it's where they can enter any exempt customers they have into our system, so we can properly flag those invoices that they make as non-taxable and make the notations to our tax returns or our tax reports. I'm going to go ahead and jump over. I'm going to jump to reports. And just like I mentioned, we provide full detailed reports for your clients so you can pull them on a monthly basis, or they can pull them on a monthly basis and fill out their returns. So with reports here, we've got an incredibly robust engine. They can pull any level of detail they need. I've got an example here of a report. It's an Excel file. And what you can see here is you can see state level, this is actually a summary report, but state level detail with the amount of taxable sales in the state, the non-taxable sales in that state, and the amounts due of sales tax. And this is a summary report, but you can get this in as much detail as you need it. For example, in California, you need to have all the county level detail, and we pull the reports in that fashion. Now, we also, everybody, do offer an automated sales tax return solution. And I'm going to go ahead and jump in that and show you just what it is. So worksheet.
Yeah, this is Ray. Really quickly here, we work with accounting firms in two ways on returns. So if we deal directly with your client would be doing this. If we work with the accounting firm, you would be reviewing these on behalf of your client, and we would be billing you, and then you would bill your clients for the service.
Exactly.
So it really all depends on how you want to work with Avalara. We can work directly with your client or work with your firm.
Yep. So if you have a client that's using our solution, you come into our system.
Is there a question?
Michelle?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask a question, too. Back where you were talking about when the client sets up whether their taxes are taxable or not and stuff,
yeah.
What if we don't know? What if we don't know, or our client doesn't know? We don't know the different state laws. Can you talk about, don't you have a service that helps to identify for them what's taxable or not, as well as whether they have Nexus and stuff?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Michelle. So we don't give tax advice, but we have a service that can do that, or we have other accountants that we can refer you to that will do that on behalf, and they'll do it for free. So we can get those questions answered depending on what your level of need is.
Okay. And can I ask a couple more quick ones? Is it available for Canada?
Absolutely. We do VAT and GST in 100 other countries outside of the U.S. We can also file your GST and HST returns in Canada.
Very cool. And so what about if they have Canadian clients who pay U.S. taxes?
That's a very common scenario. We have plenty of Canadian clients that use AvaTax to calculate sales tax here in the United States. We do not work, however, I should notate, we do not work with Canadian QuickBooks. You have to be on a U.S. version of QuickBooks.
Ah, that's okay. That answers the second part of their question. Okay, one more, and then I'll let you guys get back to this. Does it take into account the treatment of SaaS-based services in different states, since it's different in the different states, whether they charge tax on SaaS or not?
We do. Yeah, and SaaS companies, software companies, are a major vertical of us. You know, we support their clients, but we also support them for sales tax.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No problem. I really didn't want to show much here, but basically like that summary report I showed in Excel, this is a summary report of all the liabilities that your client would have if your client was using us for returns. And you were walking through and doing reconciliations. You come into our system. You do any adjustments that need to be made, maybe for a prepayment or prior payment, vendor discount. You approve the amount to be paid from this drop-down box. You work your way to the bottom. You have a full liability amount that's going to be paid there to all the states, and you save it. Once that's saved, Avalara pulls that liability amount from an account that your client sets up with us, and we create, file, and remit the returns. So that's our automated solution, everybody. Now, we did have a last polling question, and we did miss it. And I want to go ahead and throw it out there. Michelle, would you go ahead and launch that?
Okay, they should be seeing that. Have you heard of the Marketplace Fairness Act? Have you guys heard of that? Do you know what it is? Have you heard of the Marketplace Fairness Act? I'll tell you, it is really difficult to stay up with all the sales tax laws and the changes and stuff because, like you mentioned, those states, you know, they're changing things and they're going after things and stuff. So it's really difficult, not only for the small business owner, but for us as accounting professionals. It's hard to stay up with all this stuff.
That's right.
Go ahead.
And, yeah, Michelle. And so you're absolutely right. And it hasn't passed yet, but it's passed the Senate and it's in the House, and likely nothing's going to happen until after the election. But what the Marketplace Fairness Act is, and we do webinars on this, and over the next several months, it's likely when conversations heat up again on this, that you'll get questions on it. Your clients will ask you questions. Is this going to affect me, and that kind of stuff. But what it is, for those that said that they had online clients that sell online, Marketplace Fairness would allow states to tax remote sellers even if they don't have Nexus today. So it really is closing the gap for states with internet sales. That's effectively what it's about. And you know, you can, if you have further questions, want information on that, we do webinars on Marketplace Fairness, both from a technical perspective as well as a high-level perspective. I will say this, your clients, the way the law passed the Senate, you have to have $1 million in remote sales for it to affect you. So it's not going to affect everybody, but it will affect some that aren't paying tax today to the tune of $30 billion nationally, if it were to pass. But that's what Marketplace Fairness is, the ability for states to tax remote sales.
Okay, it looks like about 70 or 83% said no, they had not heard of that before. Correct. 17% who had heard of that. Okay, do you guys have time for some questions? Sure. Okay, one of our questions is, does it work for general contractors?
There are quite a few different rules around the states that pertain to general contractors. There are certain states where it absolutely works for general contractors, and there are certain states where it does not work. It all depends on how the state treats that particular line of work that general contractor might be involved with. If it's retrofitting homes and doing remodels, there's quite a few states we can work in. If it's new home construction or certain commercial construction, things like that, not always. And if you have specific questions, everybody, in regards to general contracting and construction and anything like that, Michelle, I think we'll throw up our contact info here later, and we can go, we can have that conversation. Don't hesitate to send myself, Ray, or Madeline, one of Ray's assistants, to have that conversation and make sure we get those questions answered.
Okay, yeah, because somebody else said my contractor clients are in one state, but in multiple counties and cities, and how would this work for them, and what does it look like in QuickBooks?
Yeah, it can be set up. Jordan's being honest. It can also be complex and difficult.
Yeah, I know. You know, I live in Missouri, but I know on the Kansas side with contractors, it is so confusing. And this is what's amazing is even for like lawn and landscape companies. If somebody mows the grass, that's a service and it's non-taxable, but if they apply fertilizer, they sold a product, so it is taxable. So that's where I think people really need to make sure they find out and get help from somebody like you all to make sure that they're complying, because the worst thing for these small businesses to get a state tax audit, you know, after they've been in business 5 years and find out they owe all these thousands and thousands of dollars in back taxes, plus penalties and interest, and it can just close the business down.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true.
Okay, so we have some more questions here, unless you guys want to present some more stuff?
No, questions are great, Michelle. I see them running through. That's a great idea. Why don't you read them off so everybody understands it, and then we'll try to answer them as we can.
Okay, so one of these questions is South Dakota, in particular, offers a sales tax allowance discount if you file online and on time. I know Missouri does that too. You get like a 2% tax if you pay it on time.
Correct.
Does Avalara take that into consideration?
We do. We do. So if you have accruals or any discounts for prepayment, we take those into account. And it all depends on you know, if you're doing it outside the return, then you would have to notify us that, you know, you've made those payments. If you're paying them along with the return, then we would handle it, know about it. But yeah, we cover that.
Okay. And can you explain when you talked about remote sales? What are remote sales?
Yeah, so that's really that's a great question. So the way the law is written doesn't say internet sales. The law says remote sales. And so what's really intriguing by this is it could be anybody selling anything remotely into your state. So somebody asked a question about South Dakota. I believe South Dakota and Hawaii are the only two states that tax services. So in theory, if I'm an accountant and I'm calling a client in South Dakota on the phone, I'm remote and I'm providing a service. I'm engaging with my client doing a return. That could be a taxable transaction in the future. But remote means what I'm saying. You're not physically present in the state, and you're not conducting business there. You're remote. So it effectively allows the states to interpret it the way in which they want. But it really, that's the way it's written. So it could cover catalog sales, if there is such a thing anymore. It could cover internet sales, anything like that.
Okay, and then telephone sales or telephone orders and stuff too.
Correct. That's right.
And does it work with QBO, QuickBooks Online?
Yeah, yes, it does work with QuickBooks Online. And this year, later this summer, we'll have a big announcement on Harmony and so forth and the new version of that. I don't want to pre-announce it right now, but yes, we do.
Okay. And is there a version that connects with online sales cards? And if so, is there a way to pay the sales taxes that are necessary to automate that process?
Absolutely. So we connect with hundreds or thousands of shopping carts, you know, from Magento to Demandware to IBM WebSphere, many different versions of shopping carts. So yeah, if somebody could type a question in and say which one, we can connect to it. And then we also have an integration kit for people using shopping carts that makes it very simple to calculate sales tax for your shopping cart.
Okay, and then is there a workaround for those people who are using the Canadian version of QuickBooks? Is there a workaround where you can do an IIS file or a Web Connect or some way for them to do that so that they could use your service?
Yeah, Michelle, there are a couple different ways that companies do work with us that run Canadian QuickBooks. There are ways to manually upload their sales information into our system, and we can populate their returns, and you can pull them back out to properly file in the States, or we can file them just like you saw with our tax return solution. We also have a live calculator they can use if they need to look up rates based on destination anywhere here in the country for states they might collect in. If somebody wants to go over that in detail, please give me a call or write me an email. I'd be happy to engage on that.
Okay. And can you just clarify, you went over and you showed us the reports and things like that, but you guys can actually automatically file and everything, right? Somebody said, did they miss whether you will complete and file the sales tax returns or just provide the reports?
No, we file. We file and remit on your client's behalf and do notice management.
Okay, and then can you clarify the compatibility? You do work with QuickBooks desktop products, but not with QuickBooks for Mac. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so with QuickBooks Pro, Premier, and Enterprise, you work with QBO. What about a hosted QuickBooks Windows product?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have hosted QuickBooks clients, and in fact, we have tons of them. So, and we work with almost every hosting company out there, and have our solution operating on their hosted environments easily. So.
Okay, very good. And can you reiterate the setup process? They said that they want to understand about entering the client info into AvaTax, downloading the invoice into AvaTax. Can you kind of just talk about that?
Absolutely. The process is pretty straightforward. When they sign up for our solution, they're assigned a contact here at Avalara. They walk them through getting their dashboard set up. They'll get them set up to map their product and services to our tax codes. They're required to go through a call on that. And then we do the installation of our connector via screen share, just like we're doing here today. It's very straightforward. Average clients up and running on QuickBooks within about 6 to 10 hours of work. Dedicated.
Okay, and then when people create the invoice, it goes up into the AvaTax information in the cloud to get the correct taxability of whatever that is they're selling, and they pull that down and post it into QuickBooks.
Correct. When the amount comes back into QuickBooks as sales tax liability, it's posted to their chart of accounts as that amount being payable. So.
Okay.
To most people, it's once it's installed, they don't even realize they're working with a cloud-based service.
And then can you clarify too? So we've got it all set up, and we're going through and we're doing all this, and then it files the sales tax returns automatically for us. How does the payment? How's that handled, and how does that work?
The payment is set up via ACH pull. The client will give us access to an account that they're going to populate with the funds that are going to be paid back to the states, and we pull that money usually on the 12th or 13th of the month, and we remit it back to the states.
Okay, and then so it's not using the sales tax manager in QuickBooks at all, right?
Nope. We circumnavigate the entire tax engine within QuickBooks.
And that's probably a good idea because there are some problems with that, and there are some reports in QuickBooks that if you're just using that, you're probably having clients overpay their sales taxes.
There are multiple things about the QuickBooks sales tax engine that, yes, lead companies to probably overpay their sales tax in certain cases.
And you know what else? Can you guys share the story of the mattress company that was up there in Oregon and Washington and the issues that they got in and what ultimately happened to that company? Because that was around Nexus.
Well,
I know the story, but Ray knows it better, so Ray's going to tell it.
No. I think that this is very common for the state of Washington. I mentioned earlier that we don't have income tax, and we really like to collect sales tax. For Oregon companies selling into the state of Washington, there's a number of times or a number of cases. This particular mattress company was caught because they were driving trucks across the state line and they ended up going bankrupt. And we just had a client that we did work for that was doing installation of cell towers. So they worked for AT&T doing installation of cell towers in Oregon. You know, a small business. They decided they wanted to expand into Washington, and they had a significant amount of work over a year, and they got caught. So those situations can be dire for small businesses. And the state of Washington is definitely on the lookout for Oregon companies selling into the state, and they have physical structure.
And you know, Ray, and I think that's so true for all the states because they need more money and they're looking for this. And unfortunately, it's not that the small businesses are willfully doing anything wrong. Usually it's just a lack of knowledge. They just don't know. And then they get into trouble and they can lose their whole company. And that's where I think we owe them, you know, the opportunity to help them to avoid some of these problems.
Yeah, and the thing I will say is if you have a client that runs into that circumstance, do not run up and start and register immediately. Have a professional, talk to an accountant that understands voluntary disclosure. And the issue could be not only sales tax, but also corporate tax. And so if you do a voluntary disclosure, you can negotiate the amounts down and you save yourself a lot of anguish, or your client a lot of anguish. So definitely talk to us or talk to a professional on it, and we'll get you connected with somebody that can handle that. If you're in a situation,
Yes, totally. See, this is where I think, you know, where we're talking about APPifying the processes, and this is where we can really add value for these clients over and above just doing the basic bookkeeping or monthly accounting or payroll or something. But this is really a good, valuable service that we can help our clients with these kind of things. So we've got a few questions now. If you could answer, and they want to know about the pricing. What's the pricing for the service?
The pricing is all based, how we price our solutions based on transaction volume. We price it in transaction tiers. The lowest level for a QuickBooks company is 720 annual invoices. And we actually have two different levels of service. We have a level of service for companies that don't have any taxability challenges. If you're a company of that kind, it's going to start at $40 a month for our solution. There are some one-time setup fees. And then if your customer is going to be filing returns with us, there's a cost per sales tax return. But that's it. We keep our pricing very simple and easy to understand.
And I think it's one of those things where, you know, it's silly not to. I mean, it's so important. You really need to do that. Can you review those partner programs that you had available again?
Yeah, so there's two. One is a referral program. And so if you refer a client to us, we'll pay you 20% for the first 3 and 40% after that. So if you referred a client to us and, you know, they were spending $1,000 at Avalara, you get a couple $100. But if they were spending $10,000, you get $2,000. Or if you had multiple clients, then, you know, the money starts to add up. So that's the first program. That's a referral program. The second program is the compliance program, and that's for those of you that are interested or perhaps are doing sales tax work, sales tax returns on behalf of your clients. If you're doing that, and you know, it all depends on the volume and the number of returns you're actually doing. But we could bill your firm, let's say $20, $25 a return, and then you would bill your client. But we would need to talk about it. It's really predicated on the volume of sales tax returns you're doing on behalf of your client.
Okay, super. And then we had another question. In Canada, we have to do monthly prepayments. Can we do that through Avalara or only quarterly returns?
We can do the prepayments in Canada as well.
Okay, cool. Very good. And then somebody else said, and you guys, if you have any other questions, go ahead and type them in here. They have a client that's using the shopping cart through Megatronics. Is that a program that you work with?
We can. If somebody will send me or Jordan an email, we can get back to you. We handle thousands of shopping carts. So Megatronics, was that the name?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
I don't.
Likely we've we've done it.
Yeah, I don't recognize it, but that doesn't mean we don't integrate. There's too many
Okay.
to know.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I can't imagine that you can memorize all of them. Okay, so we had another question about the Marketplace Fairness Act. Mike wants to know if we should tell our Congress rep and senators to vote for it or against it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it all depends. If you have clients that are retailers, that are brick and mortar retailers, they're for it. If you have clients that are internet software companies, they're against it. So it's like anything, huh? It all depends on what your client set is. There are those that say it's not fair that internet retailers don't have to pay sales tax, and there are those that say, hey, it's just a new paradigm of doing business, and so what? The states themselves, conservative or liberal states, the Governor's Association, people are for it, as long as it's tax neutral, meaning it doesn't tax something that wouldn't have been taxed if you bought it at a store. So it's not changing, like for example, services is non-taxable in most states. It's not defining services to be taxable everywhere. In those states where it would be taxable, then if it was done remotely, it would be taxed. So
okay,
I think I did a good job of not answering the question, but
well, like you said, it just depends on which type of clients you have.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So very good. I'll tell you, it's just amazing to me too. Share the examples of, I think it was like a Hershey's bar with or without nuts or something.
Oh, it's without flour. So it's without flour. So when I talk about product taxability, Jordan gave the example of SaaS software. Another example, and companies actually manufacture products, for this purpose. So if you put flour in a candy bar in some states, that's considered a food and it's not taxable. In other states, a candy bar is taxable regardless because it's candy. Huh? Another example are bacterial hand washes. That stuff you put on your hands to sanitize your hands. In some states, it's not taxable. It's considered a medical item because it's antibacterial. In other states, it is. So there's hundreds of thousands of product taxability rules.
That's just amazing how complex it is. A lot of people just don't realize what a mess it is.
That's right. And companies as they grow take advantage of those kinds of things. They know in the primary markets where they deal, if they manufacture something slightly different, they may have a tax advantage. Yeah.
Okay, we had another question here. If a client has not created an account with the state that they should be collecting sales tax for, and they decide to have you file the tax return, do they need to open the account, or do you open the account and take care of that for them? So they don't have a state tax ID yet, it sounds like.
Yeah, they should talk to us first. It gets back to this whole area of, do they need to perform voluntary disclosure or not? And again, the sales tax portion of these cases, you can negotiate that down. It's really the back income taxes that tend to catch people.
Yeah.
But with that said, it can be dealt with, and states want you to start complying. So, if you have those circumstances, call us up and let us know, and we'll get you registered where appropriate, and get you pointed in the right direction for your clients.
See, and I think that's what's really so important, Ray, is you guys are there with this knowledge and this expertise. I'm a CPA, and I don't know the sales tax laws in and out. I'm not an expert in this area. I don't think many of us are. So that's why I think it's so important to have a company like Avalara have all these different resources and services to help us in this area, to help us to help our clients. So I think that's great. Now, somebody else wants to know if you have a guide that would alert users of new tax types.
So we do on the admin console that Jordan showed you. It talks about tax holidays. It has tax updates and that kind of stuff. You could go through and peruse that area on states and see new tax laws per state if you were interested in doing that. But it's really that way. So we'd come out and say there's a tax holiday in Maryland. Maryland is now taxing this area, but we're not pushing it out to people.
Okay. And then one more question here about the pricing and the charges. Are the charges based on volume only or on volume and amount? Because my client does high value invoices, but not that many invoices each month.
No, high volume invoices and low volume amount of invoices is fine. Same pricing.
Okay, so it's just based on the number of invoices per month.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, very good. And then does this also work well with San Francisco restaurants?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the issue for restaurants, and we have systems, just like we talked about, that we integrate with e-commerce shopping carts, and you saw we integrate with QuickBooks. We also integrate with other accounting systems. We also integrate with point of sale and restaurants. We integrate with software that does that, or you can upload transactions, and we can do like Brandon was talking about before. And we have different ways of working with point of sale or restaurants or storefronts and that kind of stuff. But we do have a group that works with them.
Okay, fabulous. All right, I tell you what, this has been awesome. You guys have provided some great information, and I really, really appreciate that. So I just want to review with everybody. Again, this is Avalara here today was part of the APPify the Process webinar series, learning about all these different apps that can help your clients to have their business be better and more profitable, and to help you add that value-added service for your clients. So if you missed some of them, or if you missed part of this one today, go to my YouTube channel. It's Michelle Wong, CPA, and you can watch those recordings of that. Also, if you're interested in joining me for the award-winning Ultimate Accounting Decon, you can get a discount if you use the code APPify when you check out. So I'd love to have you join me for that. And again, if you have questions about what we've talked about today, you've got a client that's in that situation where they haven't been doing sales taxes and they realize they need to come clean, you have questions about getting it set up and started, contact them and follow up with them, and they can help you and direct you into the right place. Jordan and Ray, this has been fabulous, very informative, and I appreciate you guys for joining me today. Any last comments or anything?
No, not at all. Just send us an email if you have any questions.
Very good. Okay. Thank you both. And Keith wants to know, where's my prize? Well, Keith, what I'm going to do is I'm actually in Intuit headquarters right now in meetings the rest of the day and stuff. So over the weekend probably, I will go through and I will check SurveyMonkey, so make sure you answer SurveyMonkey if you attended all 6 webinars, and then I'll use something called random.org. It's a website where I put in the information, and then it will generate, it'll pick a number, and then whoever that number is, they will be the winner. And I will post that link again in case some of you came in late, the link where you need to register. Here, let me go back and get that for you. So that if you won that prize, you can register for that. And let me just put it back up here. It's SurveyMonkey. Oops, there it was. SurveyMonkey/S/APPify prize. Oh, doggone it. I was trying to copy that. There we go. And then you might be the lucky winner. Let me put that over here in the chat room for you. And you can just click that link, and that's how you enter. And then if you're the winner, I'll send you an email and let you know, because I'll need to get that prize to you. So thank you, Ray and Jordan, once again. Thank you, everybody, for attending. I appreciate it, and I will see you all later. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Michelle. Bye.
Bye, everybody.